So, do all of you know about Kolavicha Sridhar? Yes?
The banana salesman?
The banana salesman, yeah. Kolavicha. That was his nickname. That wasn't even his name. His name was Sridhar Pandit. But Kolavicha means bark salesman. So that's the nickname that he got, because that's what he did. And as you probably know, or don't know, have you been to Bengal? Anybody's been to Bengal? Yeah? Well, wherever you turn, there are banana trees. So if you get into the banana business, it's a bad business because everybody has a banana tree, or 100 of them. So it's, but he had a particular desire. So he thought, let me live in a simple way and just take the products of a banana tree. Everything is useful from a banana tree. The leaves are used for eating as dishes. The bark is used as plates. The core is edible. The flowers are offerable and edible. So, and the bananas, of course, you can cook them. You can make green banana preps and eat them ripe and make chutneys and all sort of things. There are many ways also to ruin a banana dish. Kolavicha Sridhar Kolabat Chataya Kyata Pandita Sridhar Udija Asidvraje Hasya Karoyo Namna Kusuma Sava. This is from a Gauraganodesha Tipika. One of the 12 Gopas in Krishna Lila was named Kusuma Sava. He appeared in Gaura Lila as Sridhar Pandit, who was given the nickname Kolavicha, bark seller. Sridhar Pandit was a resident of Navadvip. Navadvip is composed of 9 islands, of which the central island is known as, anybody knows? Antardvip. He used to live at the northern extremity of Mayapur and to the southeast of the Chandkasi Samadhi, in the place that now goes by the name of Sridharanga. During his lifetime, it was a banana orchard, which nowadays is no longer the case, at least not to our mortal eyes. During this incarnation, Sridhar played the role of a poor Brahmin who made his living selling the produce of a banana garden. In order to keep the memory of Sridhar Pandit alive, the founder of the worldwide Caitanya and Gaudiya Math Nitya, Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati discovered, actually, and revealed the site of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu's pastimes. Deity worship was established there, and it continues until after Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur's disappearance. Now, because there are problems with the local people, the place again is losing its beauty. But even when the devotees go on parikram around Navadvip, they pay their obeisances at the spot in the memory of Sridhar Pandit. After Lord Chaitanya went to the Chandkasi for the civil disobedience, the broken mridanga and so on the way out, he stopped at the spot. It's not very far from place of Sridhar. Mm-hmm. Well, I'll read some stuff, mostly from Chaitanya Bhāgavata. Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur has written as follows in his Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. Sridhar Pandit's home comes after the weaver's neighborhood. Gauranga Mahaprabhu ended the kirtan there. Nityananda Prabhu says the following to Jiva Goswami in Navadvip Dham Mahatmya. Out of his mercy, Mahaprabhu Gauranga Hari would enter the kirtan here, end the kirtan there, so that the devotees could rest. It is therefore known as Vishramasthana, or the Lord's place of rest. So let us also repose a while here at the house of Sridhar Pandit. According to this same book, there was previously a large tank near Sridhar's banana orchard, but this too is no longer visible. Sridhar was very poor. Material wealth and prosperity are not the truest signs of the Lord's mercy on someone. Those who worship the gods and goddesses are generally seen as to prosper materially, but one who is rich in the wealth of devotion to the Lord is the one who has truly benefited from His mercy. Mahaprabhu gave this teaching to his associate through Sridhar Pandit. A devotee of Vishnu is free from attachments to material possessions and enjoyments. One day the Lord went to Sridhar's place and asked him why he was so poor. Because he had holes in his clothes, and holes in his roof, holes everywhere. He was worshipping the husband of a goddess of fortune, Lakshmi, and yet he never had enough money for food or clothing, and his house was dilapidated. On the other hand, those who worship the bloodthirsty Kali always seem to have an abundance of material wealth. Sridhar answered that a bird who made its nest in the trees and wandered from place to find food was passing the time of day in the same way as a king in his palace who enjoys the best objects of gratification. There was no difference between the degree of amount of pleasure experienced by the two. The Lord then says to Sridhar, externally, though you appear to be poor, you are actually the true rich man. I will shortly reveal to the entire foolish world that the devotee is qualified to possess the greatest wealth. Indeed, they are the owners of all things, because they own Krishna by dint of their devotion. Generally, we call that person poor or unfortunate who is deprived of wealth, possessions, and a home. One who has these things is called rich or fortunate. People try to accumulate wealth in order to find happiness and not the opposite. This happiness is real wealth, not the external possessions, etc. Sri Krishna is the personification of happiness. Thus, in actual fact, the difference between wealth and poverty, the one who has love for Krishna is rich, and one who does not is poor. By way of example, during Krishna Lila, Vidura played the part of a poor man, but one who was rich in love for Krishna. On the other hand, Duryodhana possessed unlimited riches, but had no love for Krishna, and thus he was truly poor. The Supreme Lord used Kulavechra Sridhar to show the world who was truly wealthy and fortunate. The Lord is conquered by loving devotion alone and by nothing else. Anybody remembers from a Damodar Astaka? Says that. The Lord is conquered and overwhelmed by pure loving devotion. The Lord accepts whatever is given to him with devotion and eats it, but does not accept that which is given by a non-devotee. He would not accept the invitation to eat the finest, most expensive foods with Duryodhana in order to take a humble meal prepared for him by Vidura and his wife. So this is a common theme in the, like, for example, who offered Krishna some grains, was actually ashamed to offer. Yeah, Sudama didn't actually, because he was forced by his wife to take something to offer to Krishna, so he took a few grains of rice, and when he came to Krishna, he just put his hand behind his back, didn't want to give him that. But Krishna knew. He said, "What do you have there? You have something for me?" "No, not really. No, just don't worry about it." But Krishna wanted it because he wanted his love and devotion, and then reciprocated, mostly with his wife, by giving him a palace and so on. And there is also the case of Raghunandan Thakur, another great Vaishnava. His father, Mukunda, was the physician of a local, I don't know if he was the Zamindar or the king, anyway, it was one of the bosses there. And he had a little deity of Gopal, and he will offer some boga to Gopal every day, but he was called on an urgent mission. The king was ill, something like that. So he told his son, he said, "I already cooked something. Just when he gets to the time at noon, offer this to Gopal." And he was a 5-year-old kid, so he had no idea how to do that. But he said, all right. So at noon, he sat in front of a deity of Gopal with a plate of bhoga, and he said, he didn't know any prayers, so he said, eat. And Gopal didn't move. So he was quite upset. He said, eat. And the deity didn't respond. Because Angani Yasya Sakale, Krishna eats with their eyes, doesn't have to physically eat. But Raghunandan, he had missed that philosophy class, and he wanted Gopal to physically eat, because that's what he understood. So he started crying like anything. So Gopal just couldn't take the tears and just started eating from a plate, and he ate the whole thing. And so his father came, and he asked Raghunandan, did you make an offering? Yes. Okay, you can bring me the remnants. He said, there's no remnants. He ate the whole thing. And so he thought, my kid is not a liar, so I'm very curious about this. So he made a laddu, and said, here, why don't you offer him a laddu, since we didn't have dessert, and I'll be right back. So Raghunandan sat in front of Gopal with the laddu, and Mukunda hid behind some curtains to see what was going on. So Raghunandan said, eat, the usual prayer. And Gopal was full, he didn't want to eat anymore. But Raghunandan started crying again, come on, eat. So Gopal grabbed the laddu and bit half of it and left the other half. He just couldn't eat anymore. It was just too much. And Mukunda was completely shocked by because of the devotion. It had nothing to do with how wealthy you are, how poor you are, how good you are of a cook, and so on. And they still have that half a laddu in the temple where they have Gopal, Raghunandan Thakur. And a similar incident happened with Sanatana Goswami, he was getting quite old, so he was offering Krishna, he didn't even have the strength to roll a chapati, so he just offered him a bowl of dough, didn't even cook it, just put it a little bit on the fire, and that was it. And Krishna didn't want to eat that, but it was forced by Sanatana Goswami's devotion. But although he told Sanatana Goswami, at least put a little salt in it. This is pretty inedible, but if you put salt, I'll try. I'll eat that. So here you go. This is the main ingredient of anyone who wants to do anything for Krishna. If you can do it unconsciously, you can do it with a lot of skill, you can do it with a lot of wealth, you can do whatever you want to do, but if the devotion is not there, Krishna doesn't have any interest. Because he doesn't need anything. Krishna is God, we can agree with that, and he has everything. That's the definition of God, the one who has everything. But there is something he doesn't have, it's your love, because that's yours, and you have to give it voluntarily. So if you are requested to offer something to Krishna, that's the main ingredient, that you give your heart in your offering. The Supreme Lord Caitanya Mahaprabhu showed the amazing pastime of hungrily taking Sridhar's foodstuffs without even being invited to do so. That's quite amazing. While the Lord was engaged in his student pastime, Sridhar used to make his living by selling banana flowers, mochia, and the core of a banana plant, which is called toria. He would spend half of whatever little money he made to worship the Ganges, and the other half in his own necessities. Like Yudhishthira, he was a great devotee of the truth and will always tell the real price of an item he would sell, which in India is unheard of. Everyone in Navadvip knew this, and so would not haggle with him. But Mahaprabhu, he was different. He would come to Sridhar and give him only half the amount that he was asking for his bananas, banana flowers, or thoria, and then start to walk away with him every day. And the two of them will pull back and forth on a bunch of bananas or something else, arguing for an hour or more over the price that was to be paid. Lord Chaitanya, he will say, how much is this? This is half a paisa. That's too much. That's way too much. You will never get that from me. Can anybody with strength tighten this up? My hands are very weak. Thank you. That's good. Yeah, that's good. So Lord Chaitanya, that's ridiculous. How can you charge that? You're such a wealthy man, and then you disguise yourself. You don't, just because you're so greedy that you just wear this clothes so people don't know how wealthy you are. And no, he said, I really don't have anything, and I use 50% to worship the Ganges. And Lord Chaitanya said, you don't have to do that. I'm the source of the Ganges. Krishna, Vishnu. He couldn't tolerate to hear that. And Lord Chaitanya would laugh and go away and take his stuff, and not pay for it sometimes. So he will actually ask for the price, but most of the time he wouldn't even pay. He would just walk away with the goods. Sridhar sometimes will jump up and grab the item, trying to take it back, even pushing and shoving the Lord. This is how close they were. This is from the Caitanya Bhāgavata. Even though he argued with Sridhar, when he saw that he did not become angry, he would take all the goods that he was selling. Even though this is the way that it looks from a superficial point of view, the fact of the matter is that when Sridhar saw the beautiful form of the Lord, he allowed him to get away with stealing his goods without getting angry. At the sight of the Lord's beauty, he would become enchanted and immersed in an ocean of joy. While arguing with him, Mahaprabhu would call him names in great satisfaction, sometimes subtly hinting at his own divine identity. And this is a quote from Caitanya Bhāgavata. Every day you buy things to offer to the Ganga. Why don't you just give something to me without charging anything? Don't you know that I'm the father of the Ganga that you worship? I'm telling you the truth about this. They finally came to a settlement, and Sridhar agreed to daily give Mahaprabhu some bananas or other items from a banana tree for free. From then on, the Lord would daily eat with great satisfaction from the little bowls made of banana bark that had been given to him by Sridhar. The Lord said, all right, there is no necessity for anything else. And from that day on, he ate with great contentment on banana leaves given by Sridhar. The Lord does eat anything that the devotee offers him, but he rejects even rich items given to him by a non-devotee. This is also from the Caitanya Bhāgavata 2.9, 184 to 186. On the eventful night when the Lord sat on the altar in Srivasa's home and revealed his divine form to the devotees for 21 hours, showing them all the different incarnations of Vishnu, one after another, he told them to bring Sridhar there also. Sridhar would regularly stay up the whole night chanting the holy names and calling out to the Lord. This was a source of happiness to the devotees, but the non-devotees, they were convinced that he was actually crying all night because he was hungry. Just so they didn't understand he was actually chanting Hare Krishna. When he came to Srivasanga, Sridhar beheld the glorious divine form of the Lord and fell to the ground and fainted. He was brought back to consciousness by the Lord's voice. And then, with the power that was given to him through the Lord's mercy, began to recite hymns of glorification. So, satisfied with the praise, Mahaprabhu wished them to give him the Astasiddhis, the 8 mystic powers, as a benediction. But Sridhar had no interest. He said, no, I don't want that. Lord Chaitanya offered him any blessing. And he said, I don't want anything. What do you want? And he said, I just want to see the beautiful face of that Brahmin that steals from me every day. That's eternally. And I want to serve his lotus feet. So what's the use of learning and wealth and beauty, fame, high birth? All of these things simply increases one pride and then ultimately valueless. A millionaire may try for millions of years to achieve what Sridhar did simply by selling bananas and banana products and still not be able to do so. There's another quote from Caitanya Bhāgavata. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Goswami Thakur comments on these verses as follows. Though through empirical knowledge or external analysis, no one can recognize the true character of a devotee. It should not be thought that the ability to collect great amount of money is a function of devotion, nor that someone who is able to accumulate a great number of followers is a better Vaishnava than someone who cannot. Furthermore, if someone is a great religious scholar, this does not mean that he is a devotee of the Lord. A servant of Sri Caitanya might have very little money, may show no signs of having a great number of followers, and may not have no talent for or argument or debate, and ordinary people are unable to understand why he is indifferent to these externals. These devotees consider service to Sri Caitanya to be something more valuable than the accumulation of wealth, followers, or learning. Thus there is no possibility of the depth of their wisdom, their glories, and their superiority being perceived by the general public. That's a quote from Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati Thakur. Who is capable of recognizing a devotee? He may possess all perfections, but we see only his poverty. The seller of banana products, Sridhar Pandit, is a living example of this. He disregarded the 8 mystic perfections in order to simply accept devotion as a benediction. However such misery you see in a devotee's life, you should know that in fact is enjoying divine pleasure in devotional service. Those who are absorbed in sense gratification and intoxicated by learning or wealth can never recognize a Vaishnava. That's another quote from Chaitanya Bhāgavata. When Mahaprabhu was leading the Sankirtan party after having delivered Chandkazi, he returned through the quarter of the conch shell merchants and of the weavers to arrive finally at Sridhar Pandit's house. He then took a long drink of water from Sridhar's old-beaten iron water pot. When Sridhar saw Mahaprabhu do this, he was mortified and fell unconscious. Now this was not just an ordinary pot, it was actually the pot that they used to wash the feet, before you come into the house. You don't put your foot inside the pot, but you just pour the water into your feet. And because Sridhar was poor, that was his pot, that he drank from there and washed his feet. And Mahaprabhu, in front of everyone, there were hundreds and thousands of devotees, he actually came and just ran to the house of Sridhar, grabbed the pot that washed people's feet, and drank it, the whole thing. So the devotees were very bewildered. Who lives there? Who lives there that it gets this privilege that Lord Chaitanya himself will drink the water from a pot that washes his feet? They had no idea of the wealth. So that's what Lord Chaitanya was saying, that he is the most wealthy. Even God will drink out of his pot. Mahaprabhu's action was meant to teach us that drinking a devotee's water we can attain devotion. He wanted to show that the water from a devotee's water jug, even though old and rusty, is still like nectar to the Supreme Lord himself. By way of contrast, he ignores the proud non-devotee's water even when offered in a jeweled goblet. When the Lord saw Sridhar's tumble-down shack of a home from a distance, he laughed quietly from the inner joy he felt. He led the company of devotees along the path to Sridhar's hut, where he spotted an iron water pot full of holes. There was still a little water in it, and the Lord drank it thirstily. The Lord is Bhaktavatsal, ever affectionate towards his devotees, and this act overwhelmed him with feelings of love. Tears poured from his eyes like the currents of a Ganga, and a wonderful kirtan began in Sridhar's courtyard, in which all the devotees led by Nityananda and Advaita Prabhu were crying. When I think of the great joy they all experienced on that day here at Sridhar's house, my heart is torn. This is from a Bhakti Ratnakar. The Lord drank water from Sridhar's iron water pot, and he fulfilled the desires of every single devotee. This is from the Chaitanya Charitamrita. On the very day before he took sannyas, Mahaprabhu happily accepted a gift of a gourd from Sridhar. Sachimata cooked the gourd with milk, making one of the Lord's favorite preparations. The pious Sridhar came to see the Lord carrying a gourd, called Lau in Bengali. When Gaurasundar saw the gift, he laughed and asked, "Where did you get it?" But he knew that he would be leaving the next day and would not be able to eat it then. But he did not want to see the gift go unused, and so he determined to have it prepared that very day. That's a quote from Caitanya Bhāgavata. After taking sannyas, Mahaprabhu wandered in the land of Radha for 3 days in an intoxicated state of love for Krishna until Nityananda tricked him to come into Shantipur to Advaita Acharya's house. When the Lord met Sachimata and the other Navadvip devotees, he also met with Sridhar. Sridhar came every year to Puri to meet with the Lord at the time of Ratha Yatra. That's from Life, Sri Caitanya, Life and Associates. So we can see from these descriptions from Bhakti Ratnakar and Chaitanya Charitamrita and Chaitanya Bhāgavata and so on, and Bhaktisiddhanta and Srila Prabhupada speaking about it, that this was the most fortunate devotee, Sridhar. And he had nothing. He had nothing. And even though he had nothing, he still offered 50% to worship the Ganges. But he was in love, so he didn't care. This is what happened in the material world as well. People become stupid when they're in love. They don't care about anything. And in the spiritual world, also, when they're in love, they don't care about anything. But that's a good thing. That's the most intelligent. So we have to somehow or other pray to Sridhar and devotees like Sridhar to attain just a drop of the devotion that they have in like a flowing river. They can't think of anything but Krishna's pleasure, and they couldn't care less about their position because they're always enjoying the ocean of bliss that devotion gives. So this is the only thing that Krishna doesn't have from us, and we should give it to him. All right, we'll stop here. Any comments, additions, questions, realizations? Mother Nidra, you want to say something?
So they still have that pot?
I don't know.
So all these wonderful examples, thank you very much. So for the devotees, though, sometimes they would prefer to just live, kind of raggedly, but Prabhupada wanted a certain amount of presence. So could you say something about renunciation and yet presence, appearing before the world, in a nice way, but yet renounced and having proper presence, and mood like Sridhar without trying to imitate such a thing?
Thank you for the question. That's very important. Well, first of all, do they have still the pot around? I don't know. But it's well known that in Bethlehem, Israel, they still sell straws from the barn where Jesus was born. Of course, it's fake. Of course, it's they've been bringing bales of hay since time immemorial, just to sell them to make money. So even if they have a pot that says Sridhar's pot, I wouldn't trust the Bengalis with that. I don't think so. They probably are on the 150th generation of pots behold. As far as devotees showing the mood of Sridhar or Raghunath Das Goswami of complete dejection and detachment from the material world, and just eating rejected rice and all this stuff. Yeah, it's not advice for people who actually want to make a good impression on the world. We should think what is attractive to others, It's not about ourselves. You may be totally renounced from within, but you don't have to give the external appearance of a beggar, because they have a saying, nobody listens to a poor man speak. So you can't present yourself in a way that people will not be inclined to listen to you. Like, for example, wearing tilak, what impression does it make on other people? I remember one guy told me, what happened to you? A bicycle ran you over? Because to him, it looked like that I fell backwards and just a bicycle just ran me over, and that's when the marks appear. If people, when you talk to them, are just looking at your forehead and they can't hear anything, or they are looking at your clothes, what is that you're wearing there? It's just they can't think of anything else. Then you're doing a disservice to your guru by doing it that way. Because eventually you can speak all the philosophy you want, but the topic will come back to what is that? That is what they've been thinking about it constantly. So you have to actually not disguise yourself, not that you have to not pretend to be someone else. You have to actually create a neutral ground where nothing but your message will be heard. And so even though you may, I've seen things like that where devotees at a Sunday feast, there's a guest coming in and they sit in front of them just grabbing khichdi with their hand and just pouring it in their mouth, and it's horrifying. What are they going to think? That you can't afford a spoon, or what's wrong with you? What's wrong with you? And you can explain all you want. And the Ayurveda says that the enzymes coming from contact between the fingers and the mouth begin digestion. They're not listening to that. They have no interest in what you're saying. The message will be diluted and diverted by your attitude. So first of all, we have to think. That's why, for example, to bring another controversial topic, that's why I try to play the harmonium during Guru Puja, because I'm thinking, okay, of course, this is COVID 19 times, but let's say somebody walks in and they hear that there's a sound that sounds like gospel, sounds like church, sounds like inviting and stimulating. Your heart is about to pour out and melt. Just beautiful music that attracts you to whatever is there. I think that's a nice thing, that will be the first impression. And not someone just playing whompers in someone else's face. That wouldn't be attractive to me either. So there are many things that we do that we don't think about it, because we just think the public is just a bunch of ignoramuses, that they will never learn anything, they're not important, they're secondary. Our devotion is more important, but our devotion doesn't show to everybody. It's hidden. You have to actually create, again, a neutral ground where you can. It's like you can't build a house if there is a house there already. You have to actually have a ground where you can build. So to create a common ground where people can actually accept what you say, you may have to sacrifice some external features. So somehow or other, yes, we may be the most renounced and eat only every third Ekadasi and fast in between. But people won't appreciate that. They have no interest in that. You're just seeing a skin and bones person, talking about the bliss. No interest whatsoever. So you feed them well. You show them, this is wonderful. And when they see the deities, they should they should see this is, if you accept that there is a God. Yes, if there is a God, God is everywhere. So why wouldn't he be in these beautiful forms? And particularly if he accepts since millenary times, scriptures and witnessing has been done that they actually choose to appear in this form. So, we make the deities look even more beautiful by our care and our devotion. So we should translate and transport this aspect of our lives into everything else we do. We could actually mimeograph the books, give them to people on sheets of recycled paper, but no, we try to make them attractive so they have a nice container. And when you give someone prasadam, you find a nice something like a cup or a container or Tupperware or something. You don't pour halava in someone's hand, with your hand. It's the same action, but it makes a difference. There is aesthetics, there is decency, there's common sense. There's a lot of things that we need to use for our daily lives. So, in closing up, in conclusion to your question, it's very, very important how we present the message. And even though internally we may be not really caring about it, or very detached, or very austere, or that we actually overcome all these desires, still, for the sake of preaching, we have to actually show decor and decency and aesthetics and common sense and kindness, so others actually can take it up, because that's what our life is about, is to give ourselves Krishna consciousness by giving it to others first. Because other forms of charity deprive you from the things that you give away. But Krishna consciousness is the opposite. The more you give, the more you get. And if you don't give it, you're not going to get it. Simple as that. So see how people can accept what you have to give and give it to them in that way. I used to preach to my parents, and I would say highly unsuccessful, very highly unsuccessful. And because they couldn't accept that their son knew more than them about anything. And I was always their son, I will never grow up. So they couldn't accept that. So I had to really tax my brain. How am I going to give them Krishna consciousness? Besides the Agyata Sukriti, sneak some prasadam into, So I decided maybe someone else should do the preaching instead of me. They can't see me as a preacher. They can't hear from me. So I started inviting devotees to talk to my parents. And they loved it. They thought these guys were amazing. And they spoke, the simplest points about Krishna consciousness. I was getting different sophisticated intellectual arguments, and when they told them about this or that, and they will just look at me because I was present. I was just witnessing all this, and they will turn to me and say, "How come you never told us that?" I said, "I'm sorry. I'm just I didn't remember, or I didn't know, or whatever excuse I would use." Of course I tried, but they didn't hear it from me. But they heard it from him. So one has to use novel ways in order to give people Krishna consciousness, in spite of ourselves. They should be Krishna conscious in spite of ourselves. So this is a very important point. Thank you for bringing it up. Do you want to add to that? Okay. Anything else? Prabhus? All right. Thank you very much. Oh, you do? All right, let's hear it.
Thank you for this. With regards to, our presence or appearance, that may not be formal, say when we come in the temple or how we're outside, I think it makes a lot of sense about what's coming from within you and how you share with others Krishna consciousness. So, a sense of simplicity, like when I'm outside, I'm in my garden clothes. I may not look presentable as I would come to temple, but it's sort of, what I find is that it sort of breaks down boundaries in the neighborhood. So they see me working, a lot of the neighbors. They're always engaging. I always engage with them. And they'll ask me questions like, what are you growing? And how come you're growing so many flowers? And what are you doing with these flowers? And I'll say, we use them to offer to the deities and make their garlands. We're giving a gift, but we're also saving money for the temple, Lakshmi for the temple. And then I always tell stories to Mother Nidra that when I'm out there and no one else is around, people come up and start talking to me. They'll ask me, when can I come to the temple? Or, I lost my japa beads. Can you bring me new japa beads? So sometimes we don't understand always what Krishna wants us to do, but then we can reflect on it and see that simple actions can bring people and into the understanding of Krishna consciousness just by simplicity of the surroundings or simplicity of the gardens. It's like welcoming them into Krishna's presence. I just reflect on the whole, sort of beggar-like position. And, when Krishna loves you, he takes so much away from you. And in my lifetime, I have had, so many times when I've had extreme wealth or so much, and I've lost it, but I never really understood it till I came here. So he keeps bringing us along till we come to the place that we can seriously surrender. These material things.
Prabhu,
2 points there, I guess.
Prabhupada was very fond of quoting Yasyanam Manugrinami Harise Taddanam Shanaya, that when Krishna specially favors you, he will take away everything and he will become very notably and obviously the only shelter that you have. Because there is Durashraya, false shelter, taking shelter of one's wealth, taking shelter of one's so-called knowledge, taking shelter of one's relatives, friends, position, etc., etc. But this is Durashraya, it's temporary, it's like grabbing the tail of a dog, as you were drowning, a dog swings by and you just grab the tail, I'm safe. No, you're not. The dog is about to drown too. So Prabhupada said this kept him, well, he's in a different category, but still, he presented the point that everything was taken away from him. And that was Krishna's mercy. Because it's easy to see Krishna when you're happy, Actually, it's not. Actually, it's the opposite, I would say. That it's easy to think of Krishna when you're miserable. And it's hard to think of Krishna when you're happy, unless your happiness is derived from kirtan or worshiping the deities or taking prasadam with the association of devotees, etc., etc. There's always a way to see Krishna in everything. There's always a way that Krishna can be seen behind the scenes. Just like when Hiranyakashipu asked, is your God in this pillar? And Prahlad said, yeah, sure is. But also there is the acharyas comment that actually Lord Nrsimhadev kind of sneak around the pillar and show himself to Prahlad Maharaj. So yeah, it's Krishna in this being deprived of things, material things. Yeah, Krishna is there for sure. You just have to see him. Is Krishna in death? Yes, Krishna is there. There's an incident that I heard. I think I heard it firsthand. I think Jayapataka Goswami told it to me. He was on an airplane and he was sitting next to an old lady that seeing him dressed in a monk garb didn't want to talk to him. Also, and, Jayapataka Goswami is very corpulent and intimidating, and his big sika and large tilak and so on. And he was reading the Bhāgavata as he was there. So there were just the two of them sitting, not talking to each other. And all of a sudden, the airplane hit an air pocket, but it was major pocket, one of those cargo pants pocket, and it started going down. Things started flying. The overhead compartments opened up, started flying. People were screaming their heads off. Things were topsy-turvy. And he, just touched the Bhagavatam to his forehead, put it in his bag, from his bag to his bead bag, and he started chanting, Hare Krishna, Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna. And the old lady witnessed all that. And then the plane, after what appeared to be a very long time, recovered some altitude, and so people started to calm down, and he calmly put his beads to his forehead, put it in the bag, took the Bhagavatam, and continued reading as if, that was an everyday thing. And the lady, who had no spiritual insight, had her own religion and had no interest to talk to a monk from a different denomination and so on, she turned to him and said, "We were spared because you were on the plane." She was convinced that was a very high realization, and she was right. She was probably right that they didn't all die because there was a saintly person on the plane that saved everybody else. So this is wealth, to see Krishna everywhere, to know that Krishna is there, and to not be fearful. Yeah. To be fearful, to be in anxiety, to lament, these are byproducts of a mental platform. If you're Krishna conscious, you'll be always happy and never fearful because you will see Krishna everywhere. So we should aspire to do that. And again, in order to achieve status such as that, we have to give it to others. We have to share it. And they can take whatever they want to take, but we should make the effort. Yeah, not alienate people, not annoy people, but to offer them Krishna consciousness as a viable alternative to old age, disease, and death. All right. Thank you. Hare Krishna. All glory to Srila Prabhupada, all glory to Kulavechra Sridhar, and the devotees of Lord Caitanya.